Today we are about to begin chapter 15, chapter that is called Ve'elu Ksharim. One of the melachot, one of the labor in Shabbat, forbidden on Shabbat, it's melechet kosher, which means tightening. You see here in this picture different example of tightening. This in this page, if you see different style of tightening. So this chapter dealing with two primary subject. The first one is the primary labor of tightening and untying knots, and the second one, which is a very little part of this chapter, is dealing with some type of labor that the person prepare on Shabbat for the rest of the week. When, where, and how is permissible or forbidden. One of the primary work, in order to considering something as a type of work, has to be, as we said many times, part of the hach dehave b'mishkan v'chashiva, something that it was in the tabernacle and also important. One of them, it's called kosher umatir, someone who's tying, like making the tie, and someone who unknotted. The Mishnah said as follows: Ve'elu ksharim shechayavim aleim. As you know, that on Shabbat we have two different categories. One is a category of mezid, which is something that happened intentionally, and in that sense, it's if it's witnesses and the person was warned in advance, he deserves mitar. And then the second one, it's called beshogeg, which is unintentional, unwittingly. So we said that he needs to do what? To bring a korban chatat, a sin offering. So here, these are not for which one is liable to bring a sin offering if one tie them on Shabbat. Kesher hagamalin v'kesher hasapanin. Important definition. Later the GEMARA explains that there are two different type of tightening for people who ride a camel, and one for the sailor. Some of you are sailors, so you know. There is one that you do it as a permanent tightening, and one you just hold the string when you need to either put it connected to something, and it's only temporarily, it's not going to be permanent. Next, but the GEMARA will explain the detail. As an example, Rashi said it was a part of the tabernacle. They have certain tightening that was permanent. So we go by the tabernacle in a sense that only something that is a permanent. The Talmud Yerushalmi, the Jerusalem Talmud, have a different opinion what the knot used in the tabernacle. One opinion points that it was in a way anchoring the ropes that held the courtyard walls in place. There is another one that said that it was a permanent knot that was used for tying the string that ripped the fabric of the tabernacle curtains. So the Mishnah said, "Ucheshem shu chayav al kishuran, kach hu chayav al eteran." So the same way that someone is liable for tying these knots, he's also liable to bring sin offer for untying them. So it goes both ways. Rabbi Meir Omer, he brought another principle. Rabbi Meir said, "Kol kesher shu yachol להתירו באחת מידיו אין חייבים עליו." And that's a very important principle. He said, tying any knot that one can untie with his hand, he is not liable to bring sin offering, because it's not considering permanent. It's like a loose knot that sort of it's not permanent because it's not in his attention. So just an example, if you're doing the tie, and in one hand you can unknot it, you not always need two hands. So here, according to Rabbi Meir, it's not considering a kesher kayama. It's not considered as something permanent. Ritva and Piskei Reed said that it's not really a machloket, it's not really a dispute between Rab Meir and Tanakama. It's just an addition words. It's always a way to look at disputation as instead of a real controversy or real opinions between the two. Sometimes it's just one elaborate on the previous one. The Gemara said, "Mai kesher hagamalim vekesher hasapanim." What exactly you meant to say when you used the term camel driver knot or cellular knot? What's the difference between something that is a permanent and something that is temporary? So, so in short, they try to say that is a two type of knotting. For example, when you have a camel, so they tie the toward his nose. If you look the way that, especially I came from Middle East, so you see it a lot by the Bedouin or by people who ride camel. You see that they tie one in the nose, and then they have the other one that they hold them. The same apply to cellular. There is one that they did it permanent, and it's one that it's just temporarily. So here they explain the camel driver knot is not that fix the nose ring itself in a camel nose, and the cellular knot is a knot that fix the ring itself to the sheep. So these knots are never untied, and they're considering permanent, versus the other one that is just temporarily. So the next one, Rab Meir Omer, Kol Kesher. So Rab Meir add or dispute, depending on how you look, he said in this principle, for tying any knot, that one can untie with one of his hands is not liable. So, he asked a practical question, how about a bow tie or tie? What's the halacha? תעמד רב מאיר משום די יכול להתירו באחד מידיו, ואינם יכול להתירו. או דילמה תעמד רב מאיר משום לא מידק והיה מידק. So he said, let's go in both ways. Either you tell me that the reason of the Rab Meir is because one can untie the knot with one of his hands, so it's not considering as something that is a permanent. So this tie, if you take bow for example, too, he can untie them with one of his hands, so it's not liable. Or you go the other way around. You say that the reason for Meir is because typically a knot can be untied with one hand, is not particularly tied. So in this, bow is tied, as therefore it's prohibited to tie on Shabbat. So the Gemara left it as a teiku, tish b'itaretz kushiyot v'ibayot, which means it's unresolved. Tosfot here tells us in the Dibur Matchil Ve'elu Ksharim, he said, he tried to bring it in a different source, and in short, Tosfot here, he left it in a way that basically Rab Meir is only elaborate of what the sages said. But again, all this question left unsolved because the key point is who is unsolved this issue, only Rab Meir, and because later in page 113a, when is a long discussion over tying on Shabbat, the sages say that by having the tying the regular tie, it's not any issue, and Rabbi Yehuda said that it's forbidden. So it's basically untied. There is a book called Chidushei Tzemach Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rabbi. He wrote a beautiful book. So on the Mishnah, explanation of the Mishnah, and he elaborated on this subject. Next Mishnah, יש לך קשרים שאין חייבים עליהם כקשר הגמלים וכקשר הספנים. There is a concept I would like to share with you. It's a concept that we discussed in the past a lot. I just want to make sure that we are on the same page. There is a concept that something that is forbidden from the Torah. We know it's forbidden. There is another concept that something it's allowed, even lechatchila, even the first. But there is a concept we studied several times in the past that it's called Patur aval asur midrabanan, which means if you go by the Torah itself, the person is exempt. By the rabbinic law, it's forbidden. So here is the example. The Mishnah said, Yesh lecha ksharim, you have a nut for which one is not liable to bring a sin offering. כקשר הגמלים וכקשר הכספנים, as one is liable to tying a camel driver's knot or a sailor knot. On the contrary, nevertheless, it's prohibited to tie them. So why it's prohibited to tie them? It's patur aval asur midrabanan. It's for the sages. So the continuance said, kosheret isha maftiach haluka vechutei svara veshel paskaya. So they bring here a example. A woman may tie clothes at the opening of her robe with straps, as well as the string of her hairnet, and also the laces of her girdle, that the wide belt tie with the laces. וצורות מנהל וסנדל ותמונות יין ושמן וגדרה של בשר. And one may also tie straps of shoe or a sandal, as well as the spout of wine and oil jar. רבי אליעזר בן יעקב אומר, קשרים לפני הבהמה בשביל שלא תצא. Rabbi Yaakov says, one may tie a rope across an entrance before an animal so that it will not go out. So here there's several things. Rashi said in Yevamot, page 101a, Rashi said there that he's a differentiate between sandal and shoe as far as the tying it. Some, it's especially in the ancient time, it's a very strong tie, and there's the other one, it's soft. So in other words, the sandal, it's not whole tied the feet the same as the regular shoe. Or there are those who say that it was several pieces that they put them together, you know, like the old sandal, it was pieces, and you tighten them from different direction. The Ritva said that the old sandal was just one piece that made out of leather. So the GEMARA said Hagufa Kashya. You see the first clause of the Mishnah and the second clause of the Mishnah, one contradicted the other. Amarta, you said at the beginning of the Mishnah, יש קשרים של חייבים להם כקשר הקמלים וקשר הספנים, חיוב האודלקה איסורה איקה, והדר תנא קושר אישה מבטח חלוקה אפילו לכתחילה. So the first part, you tell me that there are certain knot that one is liable, for example, to bring sin offering, for example, tying a camel driver's knot or sailor knot. So it means that there is no Torah prohibition, it's only a rabbinic prohibition. And then you told that the woman may tie the opening of the robe, that it means that it's allowed even lechatchila. So they respond, they said, יש קשרים שאין חייבים עליהם כקשר הגמלים וכקשר הספנים. ומה הניעו? So the GEMARA answered and they said that there are knots for which one is liable to bring a chatat sin offering for tying them on Shabbat. For example, these two examples of camel and cellular. And which are these? Which are these type of ksharim? We just turned, and that's the page of today, 112a. Kitra dekatre bizmama, וכיתרא דקתרא באיסטרידידה, יובא ודליקה האיסורא איכא. Exactly what we said, a knot which would tie the strap in a camel nose ring, and the knot which one tie rope in the ring fixed to the bow of a sheep. So with regard to liability to bring chatats in offering, there is none. However, there is a rabbinic prohibition. ויש שמותרים לכתחילה, ומעניהו קושרת מפתח חלוקה. So it's like the Ran said, חיסור מחסרה ועד נקטני, which means that there is a rabbinic prohibition. There are knots that are permitted to be tied on Shabbat lechatchila. And the example is the woman that used the tie opening of her robe. Then they said miftach haluka. We said in the Mishnah the woman may tie the opening of her robe on Shabbat. So they said pshita, that's obvious. Lo tzricha deitle trei dashe, that they have the robe of 2 laces. So to tie the opening. You may think that one may become void because women can remove the garment even with 1 string. So it's not a permanent knot. So therefore they teach us that neither one of them is a permanent tightening. Rashi here said that that's the whole idea, that we allow, because you can open them both, it's not an issue. The Ran said that sometimes they're using just one of them, the women, and sometimes they untie one and the other not. So therefore, neither way, it will never consider as a permanent. Vechutei svacha, we give another example, that women may tie strings on her hairnet on Shabbat. So again, they said, okay. Pshita lo tzricha de revachala. So they said it's obvious. They said it's necessary. It's unnecessary because the hairnet, she want to lose her hair, so it will be easy for her. So you think that something removed without untying it and not remain, so it's an issue. So the Mishnah teaches that woman is protective of her hair and avoiding pulling it out, and therefore she unties the hairnets to avoid damaging her hair. We speak about the straps of the shoe or sandal on Shabbat. You said that is allowed. So if someone untied the sandal or a shoe, so one said that he is need to bring a sin offering, the other one said he's exempt, but it's forbidden. What does that mean, exempt but it's forbidden? No, tell me.
It's exempt from Torah law, but the rabbi still forbid it.
Excellent, very good. There is another opinion that said that even Benishio, lechatchila, you're allowed to do it. So kasha minal al minal, kasha sandal sandat. What do you see here? You see a contradiction. One said this way, one said the other way. So how you explain this contradiction between the braytot? So the minal al minal lo kasha, when you use the shoe and the shoe in one place to another, it's not a question. Why? When we use the example of the one bring a sin offering, it's referring to a shoemaker's knot. Why? Because he made it in such a way that is a permanent to hold the shoe together. Patur aval asur bidrabanan. If he is exempt by Torah but is prohibited by rabbinic decree, it's referred to what? To the shoe worn by the sages. So why? Because the sages in that time they tie their shoes loosely so they can easily put and remove their shoes. So that's the way they. The Ran said that the others used to put it tight. People usually tie their shoe, but the sages they did it because they want when they walking out the Beit HaMidrash in and out. The Meiri said they want to walk in a peace like Shabbat afternoon, right? So. Mutar lechatchila b'divnei mechoza. The third one, they said that you allow even lechatchila. It's referring to people resident who live in the city of mechoza. We explained several times that these people are very meticulous, very fastidious in their food, in the dress. So they tie and untie the shoes every day. So most probably in the ancient time, not everyone did it. Remind me one time I have a congregant who have a long beard, and I said, you know, David, why you have this beard? He wasn't religious at all. So he said he doesn't have the patience to stare at the front of the mirror and shave every day. That's the only reason. So not everyone like to untie the shoes every day. Some, especially if you look at those big shoes, the mountain walking shoes, you need to tie for a long time. In the army, they used to train us for timing, how long it takes us to tie the shoes. הסנדל לא קשיא, הדקתנה חייב חטאת בדתיעי, דקתרי ושקפי, פטור אבל אסור בתחום רתה דקתרי אינהו. מותר לכתחילה בסנדל דנפקי ביתרי כדרב יהודה. So the contradiction between one statement with regard to the straps of a sandal and the other one for the sandal is not difficult. Why? Because one writer that teaches that one is liable to bring a sin offering, referring to the old Arab sandals, for which the shoemakers tie permanent knots, and the writer that teaches that he is exempt by Torah law, it is prohibited by rabbinic decree, is referred to the straps that they, which means regular ordinary people, tie. So what we learn that it's permitted to tie and untie the strap of sandal lechatchila. It's referring to a sandal shared by two people who alternate going out in different times. Again, show you the historical context of poverty. The two people using the same shoe. They untie and retie the straps which time to ensure that the sandal will fit properly, like the sandals of Rabbi Yehuda. כי דרב יהודה אחו דרב סלח חסיד אבל יאו זוגה לסנדלי זים דנפק ביהו זים דנפק בינוקה עד לקמא דאביי אמר לקאי גבנה מה אמר לך חטאת. So Rav Yehuda, the brother of Rav Salah Hasida, said as they have a pair of sandals, and sometimes he will go out wearing them, and sometimes his child will go out wearing them. So he came before Abai and he asked him, what's the situation, what's the ruling? So he asked, can I tie the straps on Shabbat? So he said, doing so, it's a chayav chatat, it's already in the sin offering. Amar ve'ashta patur aval su, kasheli chayav chatat kamart li. He said to him, now it's like you go a different direction. In one hand you said that one exempt by Torah law, but it's still prohibited by rabbinic law. So that's it's difficult for me. And now you say that need to liable to bring a sin offering. What's the reason? What's the rationale? My tama. Amar le mishum de bechol nami zimnin nefek neba'ana zimnin nefek be'enuka. Says the reason is because during the week sometimes you use it, sometimes your son's using it. Amar le yachem mutar lechatchila. So but I said to him, if that's so, it's permitted to untie the straps even lechatchila. So you see here that any tie, any kesher, any type of tightening that a person can untie in a daily basis, you're allowed to tie and untie even if it's well tied. And that's the Be'ur Halacha or Achaim Shin Yud Zayin 317 said it very clearly. Because the whole concept of Kesher Bar Kayama, as long as the person on a daily basis tie and untie like our regular modern tie, so that's not an issue. Especially in Shabbat, if you tie and untie the same time, the same day, and people do that in a daily basis, it's not the issue. Rabbi Yirmiyahu was walking after Rabbi Abahu in a Carmelit. We explained many times that it's a separate category on Shabbat. When the strap of his sandal tore. Sometimes you walk and you see someone have this issue. Maya Evidley. So Rabbi Yirmiyahu said to Rabbi Abahu, what should I do now? He said, take a moist reed feed from animal consumption and wrap it around the sandal to fasten it. So different story, just different names. So he said to him, leave it, do not move it. Why it's different from the other? He said the sandal will not have been protected, and here will be protected. But if you desire, you can switch it from right foot to the left foot and wear it. You have some shoes that can do that. Usually you can do that, but it's probably in ancient time they have the ability to switch the shoes. He says because he brought the answer And he concluded that Achai is according to Rabbi Yehuda, so therefore a torn sandal is not considering an utensil even they are switch, which means even they are turn around. Maihi. So the Gemara asks, what is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? So they said, Tanya, sandal שנפסקו לו שתי אוזניו או שתי טריוסיותיו או שניטל על הכף שלו טהור, אחת מאוזניו או אחת מטריוסיותיו או שניטל רוב הכף שלו טמא. So they said a sandal, the Geonim said that it was ritually impure. So the two ears that hold the straps, or the two straps, broke. So the entire sole was removed. So it became tamed, become ritually impure, ritually pure. Sorry, become tahor. It's ritually pure because it is no longer a utensil. On the contrary, if only one of its ears and one of its straps broke, or it only most but not all of its soul was removed, it remained impure. So basically we are here speaking about a machloket, a different opinion in the state of a impurity. Rabbi Yehuda omer nifseka pnimit tameh achitzona tahor. Rabbi Yehuda hold that if the inner part of the strap broke, so it's impure. Why? Because you can use the outer part of the brass, but if the outer strap broke, it's rendered pure. ואמרו לה ויתמר רבא בר חנא אמר רבי יוחנן כמחלוקת עניין הטומאה ככה מחלוקת עניין שבת ולא עניין חליצה. So here we juxtapose this disputation between Hilchot Tumah and Tahara, the law of impurity, and the law of Shabbat, and the law of Chalitza. So he said that like the dispute with regard to Tum'ah, to ritual impurity, so there's a dispute in regard to Shabbat, which is if one is permitted to wear such a sandal on Shabbat, or it's considering a muktzeh, but not, there is no dispute with regard to Chalitza. Chalitza, for those who are not familiar, the woman that the husband passed without having children, so she is forbidden to marry someone else. Only the brother of the deceased need to do a yibum to her. He has the obligation to marry her, so the seed will perpetuate it in the family. Like the story in Bereshit, chapter 38, with the children of Yehuda, Er and Onan and Sheila. That's a famous story with the yibum. However, if the brother refused to do it, then there are other options. She allowed to go ahead and marry other men if he does the ritual, the Torah call it chalitza, which is this a certain process of rituality, which is removing the shoes of the yavam. That's the Torah said in Deuteronomy 25. And when they use the term shoe, or in Hebrew na'al, it's included also if we wear sandal. It's no different. Even the Talmud said in the Tractate Yevamot, page 102, that in the Talmudic time it's a much common they use sandal, because that's again with the temperature environment, people use sandal more often than using shoes. The Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer Kuf Samechtet 169 elaborate on that. So they said as far as the Chalitza, there is no dispute with regard to Chalitza. So we ask, according to Rabbi Yochanan, which one is matching his opinion? So he said, לעניין טומאה מנה הווי, לעניין שבת נמי מנה הווי, אבל לא לחליצה דלאו מנה הוא. So if you say that it's the fact that utensils with regard to ritual impurity, it is also utensils with regard to Shabbat, but it's not considered utensils in regard to Chalitza. On the contrary, didn't we learn in Mishna that if she removed the left shoe, והתנן חלצה של שמאל בימין חליצתה כשרה, so it's still, even it wasn't the proper way, because the Mishnah said in Yevamot, Kuf Aleph 101a, they said if she took off the sandal of the left in the right hand, which means that the shoe of the Yavam was left in the right leg and the right feet. So it means that she removed the shoe from the sandal from that feet, which means that it wasn't the right one. So they said chalisata kshera. So the GEMARA, the Shulchan Aruch Ibn Ezer, Kuf Samechtet 169 said that halacha it's not right. So it has to be in the right leg and the right feet of the Yavam. So they said ve'ela aliba de Rabbi Yehuda. We have to say that this go by according to Rabbi Yehuda, which is saying the following: Mi לעניין טומאה לאו מנעו, לעניין שבת לאו מנעו, אבל החליצה דמנעו. אימר דאמרין על חלצה של שמאל וימין חליצתה כשרה. So, from the fact with regard to impurity, it's not utensil. With regard to Shabbat, it's also utensil. However, that is not the case with regard to chalitza, for which it is a utensil. So they said here, so heicha de miltele menahu. So how basically you said that if you have these sandals, that part of the sandals removed, how you hold that it's not considering utensils. The Hama Rabbi Yehuda nifseka chitzonat haor al malav menahu. Rabbi Yehuda said that if the outer straps of the sandal tore, the sandals render ritually impure. So apparently, what it turns that according to Rabbi Yehuda, it's not a opinion. Al malav manahu. So so how come you say that it's okay to do chalitza if you turn around and use it for the right leg, if it's not the proper shoe? So the GEMARA responds and said, Lo'olam alibad Rabbi Yehuda, the word of Rabbi Yochanan is according to Rabbi Yehuda. Eima, and what you have to say, V'chen lachalitza. And you have to say that the halacha with regard to chalitza as well. V'akamash malan, and you derive from that, teaches that the chi amrin on chalza shel small b'shel yamin chalitzata kshera. That when we say that she removed the left shoe that was on the right foot, her chalitza is valid. That is only the case heicha. That is only where. Just turn the page 112b. Delemiltei menau, avalacha lemiltei lav menau. If you tell me that this sandal can be used for footwear, which means for the left one. For example, you take a sandal that it's on the left side, the Yavam put it on the right, and then they do chalitza. So, since it's fitting for the left foot, he said it's still have the title of utensil. But here, when you talk about sandal that the outer part it's untied, so it's not considering as quote-unquote utensil for the food, because it's not considering a utensil neither for the law of impurity nor for the law of Shabbat. So therefore, it's invalid to do chalitza. So Rashi here said that it's earlier we said that everything in regard to impurity, you cannot turn around to a different leg, so it's obvious that it's considering as a shoes even for in regard to chalitza. So how come Rashi used the word lemilta manau, which means that it's a considering as utensil for regards to even for the left one. So how come you here appear the other way around? So the Tosfot in the Marsha try to say that according to final halacha, Rabbi Yochanan hold that halacha is according to Rabbi Yehuda. Umi amar Rabbi Yochanan achi, how do you know that Rabbi Yochanan hold that halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, halacha kistam Mishnah. Rabbi Yochanan said that halacha is according with the unattributed Mishnah. Utnan. We learn in the Mishnah, Tractate Kelim, Mishnah, chapter 26, Mishnah 4. Sandal shenifseka echad meoznav. If you have a sandal that one of his ears, quote unquote, of the sandal broke and he repaired it, so they said tameh midras. So he is the sandal is still impure with ritual impurity imparted by treating. So basically, tumat midras, we said many times, applies to everything: sitting, standing, in all different use. Since a broke your ear does not render the sandal useless, and it remains a utensil. Nifseka shniya v'tikna. But if the second ear disconnected and render other, so it's tahor miletameh midras, so other objects ritually impure, the same way as the vessel become primary source of ritual impurity by treating. Aval tameh maga midras. However, it is itself ritually impure by treating due to the contact with the vessel that is impure. So here you see that there are different categories. We said that this is a rishon letumah, the first one of state of impurity, when it's attached the avatuma, because the minute it touched the avatuma, it's already called maga midras because it's attached directly to the av. So, but the Tosfot here and also the Marsha say that it's issue of panim chadashot because it means that it's like turn around to a new state. The minutes that it's turned to the second one. My love lo shna pnimit velo shna chitzona. You may say that the statement is not indication that there is no difference whether the inner strap or the outer strap that broke. Why? Because no single ear that breaks terminates the sandal use. So that's basically the opposite of what Rabbi Yochanan said. So how come Rabbi Yochanan hold the same as Rabbi Yehuda? So the GEMARA said, lo, pnimiyot davka. They have to say that this specifically to the inner straps. So they ask, aval chitzona mai tahor? So you tell me the outer strap, it's pure, if that's the case, what we learn in the second clause of the Mishnah, nifseka shniya v'tikna tahor min hamidras aval tameh maga midras. He said that if the second ear broke and you repaired it, it's ritually pure, because it no longer renders other object ritually impure by trading. So b'meh dvarim amurim niflog bedida. So you have we should divide it between the one of the ear stop and the other. Why? B'meh dvarim amurim shnifseka pnimit aval chitzona tahor. If you tell me the first clause of the Mishnah, so it means that the inner ear was disconnected. So you have to say that the second clause of the Mishnah, that when the second ear, quote unquote, which means that the outer part was untied, so why the Mishnah needs, Rashi said, to purify it only in that situation when both are disconnected? Because if the outer part is pure, and you said it's only that when it's applied only to one of them alone, so the Mishnah should say that that's applied only on the inner disconnected, and then make it impure. But if it's the outer, it's still pure. So the Tosfot tells us here that the GEMARA should ask even further. Since the second cause it speaks about disconnected of the outer part, so therefore the sandal should be pure at the first and initial, even from maga midras. And we explained many times that midras apply to all different positions. Why? Because it's not anymore as a utensil, so it's not considered as utensil. It's not standing in a state of repair. So how come we said in the second clause that the sandal is impure from maga midras? So you see the Tosfot tried to explain that and also the Sfat Emet said that it is a different state between the very first stage and the second stage, which means the change in the stages not change the status. But again, I wish to have more time to elaborate on that. אמר רבי יצחק בן יוסף, תהא משנתנו בסנדל שיש לו 4 אוזניים ו4 תריס יותיים, שלא לשבור דבריו של רבי יוחנן. So he said, let our Mishnah be interpreted as referring to a sandal that has 4 ears and 4 straps. So it means that the second one broke. It was referring to the second outer one. And it's worthwhile to interpret it in this way. So it's not break, which means they cannot contradicted Rabbi Yochanan's statement. Which means the Ramban said that even he replace or repair one of the outer ears, so usually people do not do that, but when the second one disconnected, so the first one, it's already returned to the old state of impurity. Now we bring a different tradition in regard to this disputation. And you see it many times in the Talmud, the story of Ravin. Ravin was one of the most important authority, and he came constantly from the west, from Eretz Israel to Babylon. So they said, Ki ata Ravin, Amar Rav Hanan bar Abba, Amar Rav, halacha k'Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yochanan Amar, en halacha k'Rabbi Yehuda. When Ravin came from Eretz Israel to Babylon, he recited that Rav Huna bar Abba said that Rav said that halacha is according to Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yochanan said halacha is not according to Rabbi Yehuda. So the GEMARA explained it. Rabbi Yochanan because he used that steroids according to Rabbi Yehuda, you understand that he followed that way. So the GEMARA said, we know that it's different era. It was the era of the Tanaim, then Tirot of Amoraim. So they said, since the Amoraim made a statement in according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, which means that it's much later as far as the time, so Ravin received the tradition from Rabbi Yochanan that halacha, the final halacha is not according to Rabbi Yehuda. Now we have another phase of discussion in regards to sandal, that the ear are disconnected. Nanatam we learned in the Tractate Kelim, chapter 17, the first Mishna, it's in regards to a utensil that made out of wood. Kol klei ba'alei batim shi'uran kerimonim. All ritually impure wooden utensils belonging to ordinary homeowners become pure through breaking the utensils if they hold the side of pomegranates. Because we explained that the minutes that several times, if you remember in the past, that the minutes that they have that hole and the pomegranates go through them, so what happened is the state of impurity is not annulled, because the owner of that property, he must probably have some type of value to that utensils, so he's going to use it for what? For things that will not pass through that hole. So because the hole of pomegranate, it's a very small hole, so it's in other words, it still hold as utensils, because usually any type of clay or man, the specialists that hold these utensils, that you use it for margins, so they become pure in any type of hole, because the minutes that they have a hole, people do not want to buy something that it's a blemish, that it's have some hole in it. But the owner of that utensils, they use it for other purposes. Even they have that hole, they use for some reason for other things, but not for selling it. So they said, by Rabbi Chizkiah, ניקב כמוציא זית וסתמו וחזר וניקב כמוציא זית וסתמו עד שתהיה אשתמו לבוציא רימון מהו. So what happened is, if it's a very small side, you get a hole, this a hole like an olive, and he perforated it again, and the hole was large enough to oil to emerge, and he sealed it, and he did it again and again, and then the hole completed a space large enough for a pomegranate to emerge. So do we say that become a sum of the areas of the whole, all holes add up to the size of a pomegranate, the utensil is pure? Or we said, since the previous hole was filled before the next hole was performed, the utensil remained ritually impure. So, אמר לרבי יוחנן, רבי, הרי שנית לנו, you told us in the Mishna, Tractate Kelim 26, that sandal שנפסקה אחת מאוזניו ותקנה טמא מדרס. We just learned that if you have a sandal, that one of the ear was disconnected, so it's become impure for midras, right, by treating. נפסקה שנייה ותקנה טהור מן המדרס, אבל טמא גם מדרס. But if the second ear broke and you repaired it, what you said, the sandal is ritually pure, which means that is no longer rendered other subject ritually impure, the same way that the vessel become primarily source of ritual impurity. ואמרינן לך, מה ישנה ראשונה להקה עם השנייה? So what's the difference between the first and the second? שנייה נמי המתקנה ראשונה. Because the second one, the first one, it's already the first ear, it's already repaired because he repaired before the second one disconnected. So it means that sandal was ready to use. So why you tell me that he's no longer considering as a utensil? ואמרת לנעלי פנים חדשות באו לכאן. So they said here that the first, the panim chadashot, which means that it's considering as like a new face appear here, which means that the first one, it's not considered the original sandal. It's a different, it's like a new sandal. So the old impurity, it's already paka, it's already not applicable. Kareala, so Chizkiah called upon that and he said, he was so impressed by Rabbi Yochanan comment, so he said, Leit din bar enash, which means that he said that this is not a human being, it's an angel. So that's what Rabbeinu Hananel said. Rashi too. Ika de amrei kegon den bar enash. So it says that somebody like that, it's like it's a ideal human being. And the GEMARA said in Eruvin 24, Rashi said is that it's what the Zohar Vayakel said, that Larel bar nash rachitzna, which is that they speak about the greatness of human, that it's like ideal human being. Now is a very crucial statement. You hear it a lot from the rabbis, and I think that statement is the key point to understand life. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rava bar Zimona, Im rishonim bnei malachim, anu bnei anashim. If the early generation, considering as sons of angels, we are sons of men, which means the generation go down, the denigrating of the generation that saw God receiving the Torah, etc. It's not the same as the next generation. Ve'im rishonim bnei anashim, anu kachamorim. And if you're considering the early generation, it's a son of man, we are like a kin of donkeys. It's try to say that it's like a state of understanding or state of spirituality. It's a different generation. The GEMARA in Chagiga, page 16a, said that in a sense a person, it's contain two things. One is like godly part and one is the animals part. The Balatanya explained it in the first 6 chapters. He says that it's a godly soul and animal soul. It's like two entities with one person. And those two entities are like one side is like the angel side of a person, that is like a very godly side. And there is another side of a person that is the animals, the material part of a person. So it means that the early people is like an angels, which means that they are able to subjugate the evil inclination, the animal side of the body, and lead that part toward the holy side. Since a person has a constant internal conflict, so the good part overrules the bad part. So that's one school of thought. Rabbi Akiva Iger said that if the early sages, so the early ancient people in our history, we hold them the same category as angels, and we work so hard to understand what they meant, so we entitled to call sons of men, sons of human. But if we hold them, oh, what did the rabbi said? You know, we hold them like regular human, like regular people. We treat them like you're talking to a fellow friend. We deserve to be called a king of donkeys, right? And not just that, ולא ככה אומרו של רבי חנינא בן דוסה ושל רבי פינחס בן יאיר, אלא כשאר חמורים. There is a famous GEMARA in Tractate Chulin, page 7, about the donkey of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, that as long as it wasn't tight, you know, there is a mitzvah to do to tightening. So they didn't, what?
Tithing. Yeah.
Tithing. So he didn't tithe it. So they gave it to him and he refused to eat it. So, or another source, they said that the robbers, the thieves stole that donkey and they tried to feed him and he refused to eat and drink until they were forced to return it to its owner, and then he went back and started eating and drinking. So it's right to say that this donkey was either you said like the Kabbalistic said that it's most probably a transmigration of souls, but if you go in a simple way, it was a level of spirituality of that animal. So they said, if you, like Rabbi Akiva Eiger said, if you consider those rabbis as the same category as you, so you deserve to be called as a king of donkey, but don't consider donkeys like Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, or this type of donkey, but a donkey like other donkeys, that like the story we said yesterday at the end of the shiur, that type of donkey. Then we said in the Mishna, kosheret isha v'nodot yain v'shemen. So we learned in the Mishnah that it is permitted to tie a spout of wine or oil jar. So they said pshita. That's obvious. Because if people tie and untie every single day, so you allow even lechatchila to tie. So why the Mishnah what did the Mishnah wants to teach us here? So the GEMARA answered and they said, lo tzricha deitlei tartei une. So they said that because the jug has two ears, which means two spouts. So because they have two spouts, so Rashi said, it was, if you look at those jars, they have a large one. You look at the museum, you see the way that they used to do it in ancient time. One is big and one is small. And the Piskei Reed said that one spot, it was the spot that they pull out the wine, because the way that you pull wine, you have to do it in a certain way that the wine will come out slowly and nicely. So they have two different ways to open, the big one and the small one. So they said, since they have two ears, ma'u de tema chada minayu batulei meivatele la kamash melan. One may say that one of them he voids it, consequently defining the knot of the opening permanent and therefore prohibited. So they tell us, no, that's not the case. Because usually to use one ear, it's very inconvenient. That's what Tosfot Yontov said. So therefore, he most probably will untie both of them. Or the Rabbeinu Yonatan Milunil said that sometimes people used to untie one of them and untie the other one, and he doesn't derive any joy from one ear or the other, because both of them are basically potentially for untightening. So therefore, it's no different, and you can tie both ears regardless. Then we learned in the Mishnah, kosheret isha gdeira shel basar. We said that it's even permitted to tie a garment of cover of a pot of meat. Pshita, again, it's obvious. לא צריכה דאית לה שלחה. That part, there was a string which could one open and flap and empty the food. In Hebrew it's called zarbuvit, which means that that's the old time they use for either for soup or for a light. Some Meforshim said it's like light meat. They use it to serve. One may think that that a single opening usually suffices. He voids the knot, which was the garments, tied the garments. So therefore you may say that that's forbidden. So Kamash Melan, so the Mishnah come to teach us that it's not so, and for sure he's not going to untie the knot. Which means that he tied an eye. So since he does that all the time, Tosfot Yodam said that it's not the case and it's permissible. The last part of the Mishnah said, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, koshrim lifnei הבהמה בשביל שלא תסה. So there's the two options. There's in the Munich writing it's koshrim, there is koshrat. It's two different ways to study this part of the Mishnah. But it said that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov said one may tie a rope across the entrance before an animal so that it will not go out. So the Gemara asks Pshita, that's obvious. Lo tzricha deitla tarte isare. So Rashi explained, the Rashi has two explanations, but the first one he said that the animal has two robes close to the entrance of the gates, which means one on the top of the other. Or the second explanation of Rashi, it means that it was one robe, but it holds two different spots of tie. One is the entrance and one the second one. And Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov wants to teach us that you're allowed to do it in both ways. Mahu de tema. You may think Chada minayu batule mevatil. You may say that one of the knots, one void, because it can enable the animal to go out. So, which is the top one. After tying the one knot, so therefore it teaches us. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov wants to teach us that it's no, that it's that's not annulled the top part, because by untying the bottom one, the animal have a hard time to go out to that spot. So therefore, that's what Rashi said, that because it's bedochak, it's temporarily, so both considered temporarily knots, and it's permitted to tie them. Omar Rav Yosef, Omar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Halacha Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. He said that the halacha according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov that you allow to tie a robe and before the animal in order for her not to leave, not to run out. Amar le Abaye. So Abaye asked, he said, according to what you said, halacha michlal de plige. If you tell me that that's the halacha, it means that there is a disputation between the Tanakama and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. And according to Tanakama, you're not allowed to tie, it's forbidden to tie a robe before the animals, and that's the reason why you need to say it according to Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. So Amar Lei, so Rabbi Yosef respond to Abaye, Mai nafka min lachmina. We said, what's the nafka mina? For you, what's the difference if there is a disputation or not? Because the halacha is according to where I said it. So Amar Lei, Rabbi responds to Rabbi Yosef, and he said, GEMARA gmor zmor tatehe. What do you think I am? You just asked me to learn a lesson, like learn by heart a song, and you learn in Chinese a song, you don't know what they sang, you don't know the meaning. Did you ever attend those services and you see some people who chanting and you ask them, what are you saying? They have no clue. So he said, I don't like when I need to study something to be in a situation that I'm just a follower, that you say something and I stand up and say it. I need to comprehend, I want to understand what's the resources. He said, it's like you're learning something by heart and you don't know what's involved. The Aruch said in the name of Rav Hai Gaon different explanations what he meant, but in a simple way it means to say that I want to show you an example of a student that really want to dig in and understand what's it all about, even if it does not yield to a practical halachic differences. First halacha, it's a Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 317. We're talking about the knot ve'elu ksharin shechayavim alehem. One who ties a permanent, professional knot on Shabbat. For example, a camel driver knot or a cellular knot. So this is a professional maid. Is liable for performing the prohibited labor of tying on Shabbat. It is likewise prohibited to tie a permanent knot that is not professional knot, as well as a professional knot that is temporary. However, one is exempt from bringing a sin offering for tying knots such as these. So again, it's a fine line between temporary and permanent knot. It's also prohibited to untie on Shabbat any knot that is prohibited to tie on Shabbat. Just as one is liable for tying a permanent knot, he is liable for untying that knot, provided it is not that does so for a specific purpose. Kosheret isha miftar chaluka, a woman may tie the opening of her garment as well as other knots that are not professional knots if they are not designated to remain tied permanently. So the Rambam said in Hilchot Shabbat chapter 10 that even lechatchila, even as at the first place as an issue, it's allowed to do it. Sandal shenifseka retzuato, that's very practical. The Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 308. If a sandal whose strap tore, which is if the inner strap of a sandal breaks on Shabbat, the sandal remains a utensil and it is permitted to carry it. If its outer strap broke, it is no longer considered a utensil and it is prohibited to carry it. If a strap broke in a Carmelite, one may wrap a wet reed feed for animal consumption around the sandal, just as an example, to prevent it from falling off his foot. And this is prohibited in the courtyard where it is protected. That's the opinion that we mentioned, Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Yosef. Sandal shenifseku shtei oznav. If a sandal whose 2 ears broke, which means a ritually impure sandal whose 2 ears, heel, front and sole broke, become pure, it is no longer whole most of the foot, and therefore the Rambam Hilchot Kelim chapter 7 said that they don't hold that state of impurity. We explain also a little bit the Hilchot Chalitza. She removed the left shoe which was on the right foot. So the Shulchan Aruch Even HaEzer 169, the Rema, said, if when a woman performed the ritual of Chalitza, her brother-in-law was wearing the left shoe on his right foot, the procedure is still valid. Then we said, Sandal shenifseka achat meoznav vetikna, a sandal that become ritually impure by trading. We explained Tumat Midras, whose ear was broken and then repair retains the impurity. If the second ear also broke and was repaired, the sandal become ritually pure because it is no longer the same sandal. On the contrary, it is still impure due to the contact with the ritual impurity imparted by treating. So that's Rambam Hilchot Kelim chapter 7. Now we said in regard to Taharat Klei Baalei Batim, the purity of homeowner utensils. To purify a utensil made out of wood or bone, one must perform it with a hole large enough for the rimon, for a pomegranate, to pass through it. If the hole is large enough for an olive that emerged and the hole is subsequently sealed, and then the utensil is perforated again and sealed again, and this process is repeated until the aggregate side of the holes is large enough for the pomegranate to emerge, the utensil is deemed pure. This is the case even though all the holes are now sealed, because it's considering a new utensil, and that's the opinion of Rabbi Yonatan, Rambam Hilchot Kelim, chapter 6. Now, I would like to conclude with important halacha, which is kshirat chevel bapetach. Tying a rope at the entrance. That's the Rambam Hilchot Shabbat chapter 10, Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 3:17. One may tie a rope across the entrance, for example, before animal on Shabbat, so that it cannot escape. It is also, those of you who are animal owners should know, it is also permitted to tie a rope to both sides of an entrance, and there is no concern that one might leave one of the rope ends tied permanently. That's what Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion always adopted as halacha in general in the GEMARA.